I'd like to start by wishing everyone a happy Mother's Day. And I believe actually last Friday was also National Providers Day. So this is the week that we celebrate you guys. And whether you are mothers or not, a lot of the role you play is in a mothering capacity for so many of our state's children. And I want to celebrate you both as providers, as mothers, as mother figures. And for the dads out there, we can celebrate you too. We honor the work you're doing as well. So welcome everyone. I hope that your weekend was restful and that you were honored or got to honor the mother figures in your life as well. The weather was finally beautiful. So hoping everybody is going into this week ready to go. So here we are, starting strong today. Just a reminder to everyone here to speak slowly for Sandra as she is doing simultaneous English to Spanish translation. And also happy Mother's Day to Sandra. We appreciate you and thank you for being here as well. A reminder to everyone to use the chat for any technical issues you might have or to communicate between the community, and to use the Q&A for any questions for our panelists specifically. So this morning, special guest is Sherri Sutera, who is the Senior Vice President of Child Care Services, representing 211 Child Care for the UnitedWay of Connecticut. And she is here to present on the 2025 Capacity and Availability Survey Snapshot. She's also joined by a team from the UnitedWay to help behind the scenes. So Sherri, we're so grateful to you for being here. Thank you very much. And I am just going to turn it over to you and let you get started. So.
Well, great. Thank you, Izzy. We're happy to be here and talk about the results of the last survey that we did that actually spanned two calendar years, but we'll call it the 2025 survey. So 211 Childcare, we've been doing this, I don't even know, over 20 years, I guess, tracking all of these annual snapshots in time. And we one day hope to have it be very current, and that any day we can see what's going on, but we'll need a little more provider participation for that to happen. But this year we're going to present on the Capacity Availability Survey Snapshot. And so what we do is that once a year, and Valerie could advance, once a year we basically do a survey to gauge how much childcare exists, what is legally authorized, actually authorized, and what is actually available. And so we do our data collection. So we usually find the best time of year to do it is after Labor Day, right? So when providers are all back, programs are reopening, that's our best chance to get the new school year enrollment type of information and capture provider information. So we started pretty much after Labor Day, and we just keep going at it until we get well in excess of a statistically valid sample. But this year we really worked hard to hit a certain % rate of responses. So we collect the data a variety of ways. So we do phone calls. Obviously 211 Childcare always has outbound contacts to providers on numerous occasions and reasons, but we also do it specifically to collect this information. We have an electronic survey that we also send out to all providers. So we hammer providers this time of year, virtual all mediums, to try to get responses from them. So we have an actual survey that we can email out to them and they can fill out online, and we ingest all the information. Our 211 Childcare system, our data system, we actually have a portal for providers that they can go into their profile themselves, and they can update all sorts of information about their program. Particularly what they're in there mostly for is to update their enrollment and vacancy information, since they know that we use that at 211 Childcare to give them referrals. We also have partnered in the past 2 years with OEC Licensing Division to help with this also. And we also did that also as a validity check also. So we wanted to say, so when licensing inspectors were on site for a certain number of months, they actually recorded for us, working with the program director, the licensed family childcare home provider, what their actual enrollments and vacancies were, and then shared that with us. So that gave us a sanity check on the data we had collected. And also they may have had some information we did not yet have. So we also get some information from licensing. So this year we got 50% of the field responded to us. So it's a little lower than it was last year. But we did get, of all the childcare programs in Connecticut, 50% we actually talked to live or got directly information from them to use in our survey. We had provider responses from 95% of the Connecticut towns. And so really what we had is 5 towns don't have childcare at all, right? So those are like Bridgewater, Colebrook, Morris, Roxbury, Union. So there are no childcare facilities in those towns. And then we had 8 towns that we were just unable to get responses from. And again, I think those are the Northwest Hills, Goshen, Harwinton, Lyme, Reading, Sharon, Washington, Heartland, and Eastford, just to give you an example. So the towns I just mentioned that we were unable to collect data from are not extremely heavily populated. So I don't think it's skewed the data much. So we actually use the information that we collect from programs and sort of extrapolate it and project it onto those programs that we do not get responses from. So for age group capacity, we actually use age-specific capacity when programs report that. So if we are able to get in touch with a licensed family childcare home provider, they can tell us how they use their legally authorized capacity. So, and so for instance, say they will only take 1 infant and toddler and then want to assign 5 slots to school age, we'll actually record it that way. If we are unable to get in touch with them, we will automatically on their behalf assign 2 as infant toddlers and then 4 for the rest of their capacity. So when a program reports, we use what they actually report to us. If they do not, if we're unable to get in touch with them, then we actually assign them for them. And so how we do that, say for a childcare facility, a center, if they have an infant toddler endorsement for say 20 infants and toddlers, 201 childcare, we will automatically split those up and assign 10 of those to infants and then 10 of those to toddlers. Then what we do is we take the balance of the capacity and then we split that up between school age and preschool. So what we'll do with our distribution is assign 40% to school age and 60% to preschool. So an example of a childcare center that is legally authorized, we'll say, for the OEC licensing to take 100 slots. So what we will do is if they actually have an infant toddler endorsement of 20, so that means we have 80 slots left, right? So we will do 60% of those we assign to preschool and 40% we'll assign to school age. So that's, so that would be 32 school age and 48 in that example. I have to use basic math, otherwise I can't do it. But that's sort of how we do our calculations. And we did that based on historical in this year. That's how programs were assigning them. So we use the information we receive from programs, and then if we are unable to get information from a program, we use the trends that other programs were doing to assign capacities, enrollments, and openings to them. We had a different distribution based on size of programs. So we use the same facility size types, I think, that we use for the narrow cost analysis. So small, medium, and large programs, we followed the methodology. So we didn't just use the same formula for all centers. We did it based on whether they were small, medium, or large. And each age group had its own distribution. When you go on, and we're going to pop into the chat a link to the survey, we have a couple pages that really does the detailed methodology. So I would encourage you to go look at that so you can see how we do the distribution. So just some definitions. So we have legally authorized. So that is legally authorized is what you're legally authorized to take. If you're licensed, that is assigned by OEC licensing. Now, remember, we do have quite a few exempt programs. We have over 500 exempt programs. Yeah, actually, we have 574 exempt programs. So where you will see our data differs a little bit from OEC licensing, because we also have those 574 programs. basically your exempt school-based programs in our data system, and those won't show up in e-license. So that's why our numbers are higher and probably, more true because we have those programs. But the capacities are provided from the programs. So we don't have a e-license to verify the capacity from. So those are reported by the actual exempt programs. Actual capacity is the difference between what is legally authorized and what they are actually offering, for public consumption. So you'll know that that differs quite a bit. We have a percent of actual versus authorized, and then we have the percentage of openings. So I'll just do, a center. Again, we'll go with our center with 100 legally authorized slots. And they actually offer 80%, 80 slots out of that 100. So, and they do that for a variety of reasons, which we'll talk about. So if they only offer 80 slots, that means they're operating at 80% of their authorized capacity. If they then told me of those 80 slots that they are actually offering, they have 8 actual openings, we're going to say they have a 10% opening status at that time. So, and you'll see on the map how we show that, but that really shows you the real difference, what is on paper and what is actually offered. So this year it was, we had actually, I'd say, a big change this year overall from last year. So last year we had 74% of programs operating at their legally authorized capacity. This year it went up to 80%. So that was a 6% increase. So I thought that was pretty significant. And you can see, with the bar chart and the pie, what is legally authorized and then actually offered. So, you can see there's a much closer margin with infants and toddlers, but preschool and school age, you'll see there's some differences there. So what we did also is we asked programs when we were surveying them, we asked for comments. If you're not operating at your legally authorized capacity, what was that? Why? What was causing you not to do that? So we found that there's about 30,000 authorized slots that are not currently available. And the resounding reason why we heard was staffing issues, right? So programs gave us all sorts of great feedback. Can't find staff, can't find qualified staff, can't afford to hire staff. That was the number one issue. And I know you've all encountered that yourselves. We also heard that it was too costly. Like, we can't afford to offer these slots. We can't open these classrooms. A lot of it due to, obviously, the cost of wages for staff. A lot of people, quality concerns. They were like, they did not want to operate at full capacity because they felt that they couldn't offer the quality care they wanted to. So programs self-selected or decided, what, I know we're licensed for 100 based on how we feel we want to operate and the quality of care we want to offer. We only, want to tap out at 75 slots. So, a lot of programs choose not to offer all of their slots because they want smaller class size or ratios. We did talk to more than usual number of programs this year that they hadn't opened their new classrooms yet, or the center was licensed but hadn't really opened up their doors yet. And we'll talk a little bit about that, but some of them were for the new infant and toddler expansion grants that they said that they're on paper now, they just haven't really filled them and offered them yet to the public. So that was a highlight this year also. We found that there are 10,000 additional preschool age slots this year compared to last year. Now, those are newly created and newly offered. So, like, for instance, I think, what did we have? We had about 37 new full-day center-based programs available this year that were operating last year. But more so, the programs that already existed started offering more preschool slots than they had historically. And, we found the reasons for this. And, we heard a lot of feedback. We also hear from parents, but from programs also. The big increase in demand this year, and I know we've all been tracking this, was the new kindergarten age. So now we had what, 1/3 of these preschoolers that normally would graduate and move on to school age are now still in the preschool programs. So that we saw a lot of programs reported on that. And that was why there was an increased demand and therefore people offering more preschool age slots. So again, we also saw a very big spike in enrollment. Again, about 3,000 more preschool age children were enrolled compared to last year. And we just talked about why. What we also found, which was interesting this year, was a shift in slots to accommodate the preschoolers from the school age capacity. So again, and especially for those children that had turned 5, but not 5 in time to go to kindergarten. So, the prior to September's. So, but they are 5 years old, and then they could be in the school age classrooms or take those school age slots. So we found a lot of programs this year took their school age capacity and moved some of it into preschool. They converted those slots to care for the preschool children. We had a lot more infant toddler slots, which is super exciting here in Connecticut. So 4,500 more slots, again, newly created and newly offered, which is a big spike from last year. Some of the things that contributed to that, we also feel were the, licensing changes. So we had classroom ratio changes, that was big from 1-4 to 1-5. So they could serve more toddlers in this, with the same number of teachers. So that was big. And also the group size changed, right? So it went from 8 to 10. So existing programs were now able to take on more infants and toddlers still within their infant toddler endorsement, because now with this, they didn't have to hire more staff to do that or, get more classrooms because of group sizes. So we heard that really was something that motivated that switch and helped with the enrollment. We also understand that some of that increased capacity, we're happy to report, from programs that got the, Liz was on last week talking about some of the LIST grants, infant toddler expansion grants. The state of Connecticut, OEC also, funded more infant toddler slots also. So we were really excited to see that. And that was real helpful for parents and programs getting those resources to be able to increase or offer for the first time infant toddler slots. And again, we talked about school age, but what's interesting is school age, there's an increase in school age enrollment, but an overall decrease in offered slots. We found compared to last year, there are 33 fewer center-based programs that were serving preschool age children. And again, a lot of them added 5-year-olds to their school age classrooms that normally they didn't have the previous year, because now with the change in kindergarten. Again, the ratio changes also were significant this year for school age. So, you went from your ratios of 1-10 to 1-15 with the same number of staff. So of course you could accommodate more school age children. Group size changed quite a bit from 20 to 30. And again, school age slots slipped into preschool. And what we are hearing a lot from providers who hear from parents and ourselves at 2-on-1 Childcare, the change after COVID of school age children actually, attending school remotely and parents going to work remote. So now you have a lot of these workers in Connecticut with office jobs that are now working from home. So what they're choosing to do is have their school age children stay with them before and after care at school, where previously when they went off into the workforce at their office location, they would have their children go to school age program. So the remote workforce really reduced the demand overall for school age care, which I think sort of was an impetus for these programs to shift those school age slots to the preschool age group also. So here's a look at what our interactive map is. And again, I don't know, Amanda, someone drop into the chat the link to the map, but we can click on it right here. But just to show you, we actually have on our website, so you can see, the whole state of Connecticut, and you can hover over your town and you can filter. So you can filter it by opening percent, or percent actual versus authorized, the type of care, the age groups. So let's highlight, I know I found some interesting things when we were looking at this. Valerie, I don't know if you could show the town map, if we could look at East Hartford or Manchester. So it was interesting. We were looking like, what a difference, just like two towns, East Hartford and Manchester, right next to each other. And so for the town of East Hartford, we found that they had a lower than average percent of slots that were actually offered. So again, we said statewide average was 80%. I found in East Hartford that it hovered around the 60% range. But Manchester, sort of right next door, was higher than average. So they had a 90% of programs. Oh, here we go. Okay, thank you. So East Hartford, that we found, yeah, they had less than average number of slots when you looked at the different age groups. So, and then like Meriden, when we look at Meriden, they had only 8% openings for preschoolers, which was well lower than the average. Something that was huge, and I know I'm talking fast and you're trying to hover, Valerie, but like, for instance, Manchester has 74% vacancy rate for school age and over 1,000 openings available in, if you want to just go to the school age care. And so if you can uncheck, so we can go to type of care as child care center. And then if we just did the school age group, and if we look at Manchester, it was really interesting. The percent of open, that's Mansfield, if we did Manchester. So anyway, each town varies. So some towns, you look at it, they don't need any more school age care. Some towns have very limited preschool care. We did receive some comments that some of the private programs, were competing with the public school slots for preschool age children, and that's why they had a lower enrollment. But each town is very different. And I would encourage you to go look at your town, what the stats are, and use that for your stakeholder planning. We have a lot of towns actually contacting us and asking us for a little more detail. We're happy to provide that. And they're using that so they can do some planning for next year, for this year, to really highlight where there are some deficits in care available in their town, and maybe where they have extra capacity that perhaps they could shift it to other places. So I just saw something pop up. We update this annually. We do sometimes, we try to get openings and capacity and availability information from providers multiple times during the year. And a provider can go in at any time and update their information. But we do an actual point in time survey, and we'll ask the program, okay, licensed family childcare home, you have 6 slots full-time and 3 school age. How do you use those? As of today, how many enrollments do you have? How many infants? How many toddlers? How many preschoolers? How many school age? And then we'll say, okay, how many openings do you have? And we will record that. And that's where we identify the difference from what is legally authorized to what is actually offered. So that's when, if they have a capacity of 6, but they tell us, I'm only going to enroll to 4, because that's where I want to max out. So that's really where we identify what's actually offered, versus what's on paper, right? So that's a big difference. So we do a formal survey annually, point in time, but we try to update our information as much as possible. We would really love to find a way to get providers to report in more frequently or to respond to our survey. And of course, everyone has survey fatigue. We survey people, we help other entities do surveys, so we understand, but this is a real important data set to collect, and it's useful for providers, because this is, again, where people, funders, look to see, what towns need more resources. So this is one of our best ways to display that. So again, a pitch to everyone, I highly encourage you to provide that data for us. Any questions?
We do have questions. Yeah, I was going to say, just let me know when you're ready for questions.
I'm ready.
All right. So you got the one out of the chat already about updating. So on one of the slides a few back, it said that you said that there were 10,000 more preschool slots, but the slide said 2,800 more. Can you clarify?
Yeah, so there was,
They didn't understand.
there, I believe it was, I don't know, Val, if you can go to that. I believe what it is there's 2,800 more enrolled, but 10,000 more offered. That's probably what that stat was. Let me just get my data out. Sorry, I'm going through my paperwork here. Yeah, so I believe that's what it was. Valerie, can you go back to the screenshot? Oh, preschool. Okay. So yeah, so preschooler, there were 2,800 more preschool children enrolled. Okay. But we had 10,000 more slots offered. And so that was because of people shifting existing capacity from school age into preschool slots. And again, we had 37 more centers operating this year, offering full day preschool than we had last year. So again, that's not 10,000 more enrolled. There's 2,800 more enrolled, but 10,000 more offered or opened up on the books for preschool.
Got it. Meryl, actually, I want to turn to you and see if you had any questions before I start going through the Q&A.
You're muted.
You're muted.
You mentioned a 60-40 split in pre-K. Is that matching what you're hearing from providers? I'm just
that is where we came up with that ratio. So we actually used Merrill, and it was true to form, I believe, this year to last year. So those programs that reported to us that we talked to live or collected information, that is how they did their allocations. So we used that formula to extrapolate it from the data that was reported and then use that to make assumptions for the balance.
Okay.
And if it changed next year, if it was a 70-30 split, we would use that to use our assumptions.
So with 10,000 new pre-K slots and 2,800 of them filled, does that mean your overall vacancy rate for pre-K drops because you've got that the denominator gets bigger with the additional slots?
So what we would do, so statewide, there's an average 18% openings or vacancy rate. Each town, again, would be different. So if we had more assigned slots, then we probably would, yes. If, and Valerie, feel free now to chime in. I'm trying to picture
the vacancy rate from
our vacancy rate, yeah. So that 18% was overall center-based average for all grade age groups, but we do have it broken down. I just don't have that right in front of me by facility type, by age group that we can share. So Valerie,
I can, I would have to, I can grab it and share from a look at from last year to this year.
Yeah, so while you pull that up, while she's pulling that up, did you have another question so we can find?
So this gives you the town by town. Is there a way in which we might be able to get state averages to be able, like, is there a way you might be able to, under that highlight town, to like have a place where you could add in the state averages so that if I'm looking at, you know, Portland or something, and I'm just sort of curious,
see how they compare to the statewide. We have that, absolutely. So yes, and that's what I was looking at for the overall, but if it's not up there, that's great, Meryl. So we will do that. So we'll do the statewide averages. So Amanda, make a note, if it's not already up there, we'll do the statewide average by facility type, by age group, so that people can use that to see where they're higher or lower than the average. Those were the towns that I was actually, mentioning specifically. I saw there was a huge swing from the average. So that's what I highlighted, but we'll make sure we put that up.
Okay.
I guess the next question would be just sort of like when you look at the big trends in this, clearly kindergarten age had an impact.
We also think that licensing changes for infants and toddlers and some of the infant toddler new contracted slots and enhancement grants, that was cited quite a bit.
So, last year I thought the, big takeaway was a lot of slots were still not being offered because programs were short on staff.
But there was also a reason too, Meryl, when cost is on the other one. That on one of the slides when we said why the classrooms aren't open, a lot of the slots remain unfilled, not because they can't staff them, but because parents can't afford the cost.
Yeah. Right.
So that is really, we hear that a lot, especially for infant, toddler, but and preschool care also. So centers are trying to fill those slots. They have staff that can do it, but the parents just cannot afford the cost. We also found there's a lot of increased enrollment this year, which we also want to cite because the Care for Kids enrollment went up so large. So where's my Care for Kids stuff right here? Yeah, so now we're up. We increased Care for Kids enrollment by 3,000 children this year because the state opened up the wait list and OAC was able to go to that 23,000 mark. I think we're a little bit over that, but that also, so again, there's 3,000 more children receiving Care for Kids this year compared to the survey last year. So that is where you'll also see some of the increases in enrollment and gave parents more purchasing power to go into the legally operating care and especially infants and toddlers and preschoolers. So that's exciting. And we also think the Care for Kids expansion had a lot to do with higher enrollment numbers for infants and toddlers and preschoolers. I forgot to mention that.
Okay.
Oh, here, so she's showing you the year-to-year differences so that we can see that the percent change. So you can really see that actual enrollment and openings. Yeah, look at that school age swing. That's huge. Yep. And we'll put this up. So in the link, so I'm glad, I want to hear your questions so we know what you're interested in. So we'll make sure that we put up some of these sheets. We've got this stuff crunched 90 ways. So absolutely, we'll put that up. Sometimes we don't want to put too much information if people will get lost in it. But I know a lot of people really want to do a deep dive. And again, we're responding to lots of requests by specific towns. You know, especially some towns, we're surprised because there's so much exempt center-based programs that they, you know, when they looked at the numbers online, they didn't see that, you know, so then they're like, wait a minute, I have that. And we have to remind programs that there are some legally operating exempt center-based programs too, that they have to add into the mix.
All right. I have a number of questions in the Q&A, Meryl, if you are feeling okay with yours.
Sure.
All right. So, and actually, folks, if you've put your questions into the chat, can you please pop them in the Q&A? It makes it a lot easier for me to ask them. Okay. So Tashiana's wondering, how does this data apply to providers who offer 24-hour services?
So we capture this data is for first shift. So we are constantly building out our data system and we capture whether programs offer non-traditional hour, second shift, third shift, weekends. But for the sake of this survey, we did it based on first shift only. But we are looking at ways to build out our data system to capture other types of schedule options, because we certainly capture that because that is so important to families. So we will, you know, we track second shift, third shift, and weekend care. Non-traditional hour is huge for families to find. So we really do have to capture a lot on that. That was not used in the survey. It's really first shift only.
Yeah, that would be helpful on the map, is to be able to say what is the, you know, the need versus capacity and for some of the shift stuff. I bet that would be helpful.
Yeah. And again, the word need is really hard in childcare. And I know I go back and forth. I know I've said, Meryl, where'd you get these numbers from? You know, that is the hardest thing for all of us to do. Now, in 201 childcare, we only know the demand of people that reach out to us. So we know how many people search on our search engine, what age group they're looking at. We know how many people call us and what they're looking for. But that in no way is the demand for childcare. And again, it's hard. What can we all use? Census data, right? Families with, you know, with one parent, at least in the workforce, with children under a certain age. Well, again, you can't assume that everyone in the workforce needs childcare or wants regulated childcare. A lot of parents do split shifts. A lot of people will use informal care that, you know, especially for infants and toddlers, that's typically a parent's first choice. So we all have tried to get to this number. We all know how elusive it is to actually gauge demand. That's really hard to do.
Okay, so with the creation of local governance partners, the LGPs, have you given thought to partnering with those LGPs to help collect the enrollment information or encourage the providers to reply? Excuse me.
Absolutely, and we're already talking to a lot of the planning councils, groups now, may not be the operating local governance partnership, but as I said, lots of towns have reached out to us to help answer some of these questions for them, give them some detail by town, we won't give out the actual names of the program and what their numbers are. We can say there are 10 programs, and we just don't share specific town because providers give us that information, not expecting us to say what their particular program has. We would and will work with these programs. We do a full court press to collect this data. So we offer surveys to try to increase, gift cards we were doing, OEC was allowing us to do that to help increase participation. School readiness councils, that we've been using, listservs, but absolutely, and especially when we do it next year, that will be such a huge resource for us to use to help encourage provider response.
Great. Is the map based on actual capacity or authorized capacity?
It has both numbers, I believe. Is that correct, Valerie? We have everything. Yeah. So you can function all sorts of different ways by age, facility type, authorized, percent opening, actually offered.
Great.
Might be good to take a minute and just show people that function.
Yeah, Valerie, let's do a drive again on the map.
Actually, as you're starting to share, let me ask a slightly more nuanced question of that last question, which was, would this be more accurate if the data collected from sites showed actual capacity versus authorized capacity if a program will or has never used their authorized capacity? For instance, a preschool room licensed for 28 because of square footage, but the group size would never be over 20. The 8 remaining spaces will always skew the data to underutilized. Is it possible to get this data for our community?
So I'm trying to understand the question. So if a program, whatever they are legally authorized, we use that from OEC licensing as our what will populate is what the program is legally authorized to take. So if their actual capacity, I'm trying to understand your question, Izzy, can you?
Yep. If a preschool room is licensed for 28 because of square footage,
okay,
the group size would never be over 20. So there's 8 remaining spaces that will always skew the data.
Then, and we won't know that. So we'll just capture what they're actually offering. I mean, we go by what that says. So we don't know anything about how they use their rooms and what they will fill or not, or how big at the group size it can accommodate, and the number of teachers they need.
So
we don't have that level.
It will always be skewed, and people should just sort of take that into account.
Absolutely, yep. But again, and that's important because we also need to know that as planners, right? So even on paper, if it says they can take 100, but they don't for a lot of solid reasons, that just shows what's actually offered. So a lot of times, especially school age care, what's on paper is not really what's available. So that's why 201 childcare has always felt it was so important to show what's actually offered versus what shows up on paper.
Right. And does the survey ask it in that way? Like, what is your authorized capacity, but what would you actually be able to manage?
Well, this is what we do, because so Izzy, we already know what they're actually legally authorized because we get that directly from licensing. So we don't even ask them that because we already know that question, and we would never have a program self-report that, right? So that's where we can actually make sure our data is very valid according to e-license or self-reported by exempt. So how we derive their vacancy rate or actually offered is they tell us how many. This is what you're legally authorized to have. And they all know that already. So we are already on the same page with those numbers. And then we say, how many full-time enrollments do you have?
Yeah.
And then how many more will you take? So they tell us that information, and that's where you can figure out. They may say why they don't take as many. Again, we say that. And, we capture the comments like, I can't find the teachers, or we like smaller group sizes. But that's where we find that out. So we take what you're licensed, what you have enrolled, how many more will you take? And that's how we determine what actual versus authorized is.
Got it.
So to use that earlier example of a classroom that is by square footage licensed for 28 children, where the program would never enroll more than 20, if they currently had 18 enrolled and they were looking for 2 more, they had 2 openings, you would report that as actual capacity of 20 with 2 vacancies, correct?
We would actually, actual capacity of 22, 20 enrolled.
No, I said 18
open.
enrolled.
Oh, I'm
18
sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, Marilyn. Yep.
Yeah.
Again, math's not my thing. So yes, exactly what you said. So if they say that, well, I'll take 20, I have 18 enrolled and 2 openings, then we say, yes, that means you'll take 20.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. You mentioned affordability. Any way to truly gauge this?
So gauge affordability from perspective of a family, or when we say affordability,
Yeah,
well, we
I
hear
guess
all
so.
the time from parents, sticker shock, obviously, because we also then we screen families to see if they're eligible for the subsidy program or contracted slots, Head Start, all sorts of referrals to give them. But this is anecdotal feedback that we also get from licensed family childcare home providers and center directors. When we say, they'll say, when we ask them, why are you not enrolled at your full license capacity? That's when they'll give us the reasons, and they'll say, parents can't afford it. Parents can't, parents call us and say it's too expensive, so they don't enroll their child. So that's all anecdotal. I'm not sure how to, formally cite that parents say it's too expensive or can't afford it, because of course it's also perspective from families, right? We didn't do an actual gauge of it's 7% more than their income or anything to that effect. It's mostly anecdotal.
Okay. So
yeah, go ahead.
There's a question about, is this a snapshot all at the same time or over a period of time? It is over a period of time because you needed to get enough responses, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
But we also would, a lot of programs continue to provide more current information. So a program could have filled out the survey September 15th, updated in October, November, and December. So even though there was that large span of collection, most programs, many of the ones that responded, continue to update their information as we went along. So we would overwrite the old data, or the programs themselves would tap in, because again, they use that information to populate our search engine, so that families can find them. So yes, so even though it was a larger span of time, we would have preferred to wrap it up by December 30th. Valerie and Ashley's team just kept hammering away until we got to at least 50%.
For school age care, is camp data included in this report?
No, our summer camp data is not included in this.
Okay. And then hold on one second here.
There's a question about full-time enrollments. Do they count 2 half-time as 1 full-time?
We converted them to full-time. So if we had 2 half-time, we convert them to 1.
Okay.
There's a question here about Care for Kids and their waiting list, but is any of that involved in this map?
It is not involved in this map. The wait list numbers are posted, but we've got about 2,800, I think, on the current wait list right now in Care for Kids, but that is not factored into this survey data at all.
Okay.
Well, it actually could if towns want to know what the because again, when the Care for Kids wait list reopened last summer, and again, we saw that big, huge increase in enrollment that impacted, as we see now, the enrollments in towns of more people accessing care. So I guess if a town wanted to gauge pent up demand that is not currently being utilized, if they were to find out how many on the wait list in their town, which again, that's what we see, to project what the need is or where maybe people would utilize care if they had the voucher.
So that's not something that's currently put on your website, a town by town breakout of the.
No. We don't have that. That's an OEC question.
Okay.
And then there was a clarification on the affordability question, which was more specifically, wondering how many spots are vacant due to parents not being able to afford them versus parents not needing them.
We don't have that. We
Yeah.
don't have that data. I'm not sure anybody collects that, so I don't know how we would,
Yes, that goes back to the old issue of need versus demand. You don't have demand unless people can afford to pay for something.
Right. Right. Yes. If there was Lamborghinis were only $10,000, there'd be a much higher demand for them, I'm sure. For full-time enrollment, are you converting 2 half times times 5 days to 1 full-time? Did you answer that already?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was working on the Spanish translation. My apologies. Can you speak to the anecdotal or quantified data about teacher pay's effect on low enrollment?
Well, we would just get a lot, and I read all the comments. So a lot of it was, we can't afford to hire more teachers to open more classrooms, or we are unable to find quality. We heard a lot too of, we are unable to find qualified or high quality staff. So it was that we couldn't afford to hire them, but also programs said they were having a hard time finding the staff. Even if they could pay them, they didn't feel that the candidates met their quality measures. But again, that's all anecdotal.
Right. I mean, everything that this community is aware of, I'm sure, showed up in those comments. I'm sure you saw all of it. Is the point that it's just with things like that are anecdotal, it's hard to put it on the map?
Well, it's also, we also were very cognizant about sharing specific comments based on town, just for identifying purposes. We received some comments that, weren't so positive about some things, legislatively or licensing or care for kids. And, so we are very, very respectful of not identifying providers by their comments or specific provider level enrollment. We really want to respect providers' businesses, and that's not our story to tell for them. But so we would have that, but it's definitely not something, some people put quite anecdotal feedback and some people don't. It doesn't mean it didn't exist. And you can't, it's hard to project one person's comment onto other programs. But when we saw the common themes, and again, they're all ones we've heard of. So that just helps to reinforce sort of what we're thinking is, we continue to hear the themes.
I think that's it. I think that's all of the questions. So very grateful to you for being here this morning with us, Sherri and team. And thank you for the work on this. We have, let's see, I see in Care for Kids enrollment waitlist status in the chat. I know somewhere back here you shared the map. That's different than the provider portal. So let's see, I just want to reshare the map so people have it. Yeah, I don't know if you guys could reshare the map link before you leave, then that will be there for everyone.
And I think Amanda, it would be under Amanda, I think shared the link also in the chat if you see Amanda's name.
Yeah, perfect.
And again, if you just go on the 201 childcare website under reports, you'll find all that. And again, that's when you'll find the detailed methodology statement, how we did all this. We worked with Data Haven, to make sure that, our assumptions were statistically valid. And you'll get all the detail and figure out how the method to our madness to do that. And again, if I love your idea, Izzy, of working with the local governance councils to help promote this. If anyone has any other ideas to help us when we're going to come on the next survey pretty soon, right? What is this, May? Help us get, the more data we get, the more valid it is and the better story it tells. So again, we will start again in September for the next round. I can see Valerie, you're cringing to go through this heavy lift again, but really, we really, really would love increased provider response rates. I think it's just more sound data.
And we had incentives the last 2 years also.
Yeah, gift cards. Maybe the Lamborghinis, as he talked about.
That's right. Yeah, since they dropped to maybe a little bit lower. And I think that was Joanne's idea for the LGBT, not mine, just to give credit where credit's due. So, all right. Well, thank you so much. And let us know when you're collecting data and we will spread the word here. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We still have some updates to go through, folks. So don't break off yet. First, going to turn to Meryl to give some legislative updates. Meryl, you're up.
Sure. So there are, I want to talk a little bit about statewide stuff and then also want to talk about what's going on in Washington. statewide, the negotiations between the governor's office, the House and Senate continue. If you have not talked to your state senator yet, this is a good week to do that. So what is at stake is putting in money into an endowment to fund an expansion of the Early Start program. That what Commissioner Bai has come on and presented about. In the most recent round of applications, there were 700 applications, of which I think 89 were funded. There are far more childcare providers who would like to become part of that state subsidy system called Early Start than were able to be funded with the available money. The creation of an endowment with a regular deposit of surplus funds at the end of each year as a way to build up a fund to expand Early Start is what is being, that's the focus of this session. There are lots of other things that are wrapped up in those negotiations, like how much will we bend the spending caps, how much do we need to save to deal with federal cuts, which I'll get to in a minute. But right now, it's really important for particularly state senators to be hearing that we need to make sure that we create this endowment and that we fund the Early Start program. So let me switch to talking about the federal cuts. In this week, there will be 3 committees marking up budget language for next year. As you may remember, the budget reconciliation package called for $880 billion. What was that?
Sandra, can you put yourself in the Spanish feed, please?
Yeah,
no problem.
Okay. The budget reconciliation called for $880 billion in cuts to the committee that deals with Medicaid in order to pay for extended tax breaks for very wealthy people. So we've all been waiting to hear, how are you going to cut this and who's going to be impacted? There's been some tension within the House majority in Washington, the Republican majority. They've rejected the harshest cuts, but they are still looking at making cuts by doing things, requiring more frequent reapplications so that people fall off because they don't get their paperwork in, having work requirements. And there is also language about penalizing states that provide care for undocumented immigrants. I have not had a chance to dig into that to see how that is likely to impact states like Connecticut, where we have the Husky for Immigrants bill. So more on that next week as we hear more details this week. Other things that are likely to get cut are SNAP, fuel assistance, a whole bunch of things so that we have more money to give to the super wealthy for tax cuts.
Right. Thanks, Meryl. Are you done? Sorry.
I did want to say, Vanessa, if you're on, if you could drop in the link for the petition that we were going to use to just get build some. There we go. This is a child care petition to the governor and legislative leadership to get this deal done. We have a history in the past of everybody saying, "Oh yeah, we're for it, we're for it, we're for it." Or may remember that back when we were working to create the Office of Early Childhood the first time around, that the deal did not happen because of Sunday bow hunting, which was a proposal that one legislator wanted, and it just gummed up the works.
Right.
Okay.
Are you all set then? I'm going to move to Ava. Go ahead, Ava. You can go ahead with your updates.
Yeah, since Meryl just kicked us off with, or just left us off with federal updates, I'll echo on the federal level that things are getting really scary. And today is the annual Day Without Childcare nationally. As you may all know, here in Connecticut, the organization Childcare for CT that many of all of us on this call are part of, we started Morning Without Childcare and it went national. So there are childcare owner operators, home-based providers, union members, independent, independent centers, parents, all advocating on a national level, saying this has to stop and asking the federal government for more funding, even though that this is an annual ask for changes. Obviously, things have shifted, right? Like Meryl said, things on the federal level went from us asking and demanding in our respective states for more money, and things are getting even worse, right? So if you want to participate, not too late. They have social media toolkits, frames, and different posts and hashtags that all of you could add today in participation with the Day Without Childcare. I'm going to put it in the chat. So I just added the link directly to Child Care Changemakers. Our way of celebrating or demanding, celebrating is a bad word, right? Demanding on the federal level that things have to change. We're going to be gathering at the Westview Child Care Center in Dayville, Connecticut today at 5:30. I know many of you on the call are most definitely working. But if any chance you're near the Westview Child Care Center in Dayville and surrounding areas and have the opportunity or ability to have at least one coworker or one staffer to leave your childcare space, 30 minutes early to gather there in support of this National Day, then we would love to see you there. It's at 5:30 p.m. today. Until 6:30 p.m. today, we're going to be rallying. We have local leaders who are going to be speaking. We are going to make it festive for the kiddos because it's in a child care center. So there will be a live musician for those of you who might be picking up your own kids and considering, you need to make sure that your kiddos are entertained and also need food. So we'll have some snacks as well. So that's today again at 5:30 p.m. at the Westview Child Care Center in Dayville. And if you want more information on how to get to that location, feel free to visit our website or the Child Care for CT.
Put the link.
That Izzy just put the link in just a couple of seconds ago. The other day of action for our state of Connecticut is on Wednesday, this Wednesday. Due to all the rain last week, there were some locations that got flooded out. So we transferred the date to this Wednesday. As of now, it looks like it's only drizzling at night. So it looks like we will have a hopefully non-rainy morning or rainy afternoon. Rain or shine, we are moving forward. We are not changing our date. It's going to be at varying times throughout the day this Wednesday for our statewide day of action, doubling down on that message that we've been saying here. Nothing's guaranteed. It ain't over till it's over, and it's not over, right? Session ends in June. We still have a few more weeks to deliver our message. I know on this call and on other calls, you've heard us all talk about it's a historic moment because the governor, the Senate, and the House all are aligned with giving us more funding, and that's real. We are not exaggerating how unique that is, but we don't want to walk away with nothing. So that means that we got to come to the end and bring that fight and make sure that they hear the message. We still have senators and representatives who don't get it, who don't have kids or their kids are grown and their grandkids are grown, and they don't understand how expensive things have gone. They don't understand how bad childcare educators get paid, how difficult it is for the workforce. And I know it sounds like a broken record and we're all exhausted, but I'd rather we be exhausted from telling them how we really feel and the realities than coming on the Monday call right after session is over and saying, oh my God, what happened? We got nothing. So we don't want that.
I wish we had done more. That's the worst thing we can think.
Yes, I wish we have done more. So again, check out Childcare for CT. That is childcare forct.org for the very long list of locations that are going to be rallying here in the state of Connecticut. So don't be full of regret. It's not too late. Be part of the day. If you cannot go to an in-person rally, of course, still social media, talk to your legislator, pick up that phone and talk to your legislator. There's a 1-800 number, direct line that shoots your call directly to them. A voicemail is sufficient, an email, the petition, sign the letter. We are trying to make it as easy and as accessible as it can possibly be because the stakes are high. The stakes are so high. And it obviously affects all of you because this is your bottom line. This is your pocket. This is your money. So if you want to give yourself a raise, we got to get the money first. So I'll pass it back to you, Izzy.
Yep. Somebody is asking, are those legislators you mentioned in the majority or minority party?
In the majority. Legit. If you think the majority party here in the state of Connecticut has got you, pegged for what you need, nope, I'm sorry. Now the leaders get it, but not everyone else in the majority. The majority is not all of a sudden a saving grace. This is not about, Republican or Democrat, who's better, who's not. This is not about party politics. This is about survival, and not everybody gets it. Honestly, the legislators who don't get it are the ones who don't live it. So you got to tell them. And I see a comment from Stacey Ann, where do you get
and the ones who are not hearing from their constituents?
Yes, I see like Stacey Ann wants a t-shirt. These t-shirts will be at rallies. Obviously, first come, first serve. We ordered many of them. I want to say hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. So we do hope that you get your t-shirt if you're physically at the rally.
Yeah, and the other way to get a t-shirt is to sign up for any of the lobby days, which are going to be Wednesdays. Meryl, are you having other advocacy days also? I know there's Wednesdays in May are childcare for CT lobby days. We'll have t-shirts there, but also do you have other dates for people to actually be at the Capitol doing stuff?
I think we'll just join in with you guys.
Okay, so let me share the link to sign up for
so
lobby days.
That is, Vanessa threw in an interesting, important thing to remember, that in order to get the endowment created and to fund Early Start going forward, we're going to need a 60% vote. That is, easier mathematically in the Senate, where the Democrats have a bigger majority, but in the House, it will rely on some of those folks who are not living the problems of childcare every day. So we're going to need to, really focus on making sure everybody understands the challenges the field faces right now and why we need to get it fixed.
Yep. Tina's wondering if anyone has received notification from OEC on RFAB funding. So that's for you too. And if you don't know, I guess it's also for the community.
So I have heard the sort of the big numbers, not the specific individual, which programs are getting it, but sort of we got this many applications, we're able to fund this much. They are double checking, reconfirming everything before making the final announcements. But those should be imminent. This week or next, is my guess.
Krista's saying programs were notified Friday.
Oh, okay.
There's a bunch in the chat on this. So if you guys are interested, go look at the chat. There's
some
also
programs heard on Friday. Yeah. So
I will echo Meryl that we only got a gist of, so the commissioner in the Early Childhood Caucus call that was last week told us more or less how much money they had, how many slots they expect to get, and an approximate of how many programs were going to be offered. But then into the specifics, that was still top secret.
And we have asked the commissioner to come on and explain all of this, but do we have a date yet?
We don't have a date
No.
yet, but
Okay.
I'm assuming if Chris is reporting that some programs have been notified and they're rolling out those notifications this week, then the likelihood of us being able to get more information by, in the next 2 weeks is probably high.
Also want to call out that Tashiana has a comment here. She went to DC and did advocate for childcare with our federal delegates. Felt kind of frustrated coming back, not seeing a lot of hope on the horizon from the federal delegation, and wondering what kind of impact the statewide rallies can have. And what I want to say is making change at the state level and the federal level are really different. So we're in a real bind at the federal level on this and a lot of things, because the prioritization for where funding goes and legislation goes has taken a sort of sharp left turn. It's not to say things are impossible, but I would guess that our federal delegates, being in the minority, are even if they understand it, are feeling frustrated with their odds of being able to make change immediately. I would say on the state level, though, we have a lot more. The odds are much higher of actually getting something substantive passed. And so I wouldn't give up hope on the state level. So yes, the federal delegates, there's some real frustration there. But at the state level, it's a different story. And I would encourage folks, to not to use that, let that frustration get the best of you and drop out. Because as Ava said, we are in the home stretch. Even if you have to lie to yourself and tell yourself to stay optimistic, do it till June 4th, and June 5th, you can get cranky. But try to hold in there, everybody. Try to, show up to the rallies if you can, show up to lobby days if you can. If you can't do the online actions, call your delegate, on a break or after work or whatever you can do. It will matter. And we're hoping that we get something this year. So Tashi, I'm really sorry for that frustrating experience, but you are such a strong advocate, and this community needs you to hang in. You can't give up at this moment.
For the DC folks, or for today, right? The day about childcare. If you do have loved ones, friends, anyone that you know in another state, the same kind of messaging that we've been doing here, like call your legislator, have a conversation. I highly recommend you tell your friends on Facebook or social media, Insta or TikTok, say, hey, we're in a state where things are a little different where we are with our childcare conversation. But if you're in Idaho, if you're, like Arizona, have friends somewhere else, then having those legislators understand the impact and need of childcare would be pretty important, pretty helpful. For whatever we do here on the state side, if Connecticut, or when Connecticut delivers an endowment, new programming, right? Let's say June 5th hits and we did something big, that will only help us in the long run, especially prepare us for whatever money could come or doesn't come on the federal level. So if it's truly doomsday come October 2025, could the feds double down on removing all of their funding? I'd really rather want that Connecticut has something instituted and we were thinking ahead and creative than have nothing. If doomsday doesn't come to, the underfunding of childcare on the national level, then all the work that we did, for the last decade is momentum for the future and really working to build something that is transformational. So it's not like it's not for naught. There's still, it is worthy the fight to make sure that childcare survives in the state, regardless of the future of that we don't know about, right, on the federal level. Regardless of that future, it is still a worthy fight to have to make sure that providers have jobs, to make sure parents can go to work. And that happens right now with this session in our state.
Yeah, and Tashi clarified that she's psyched and that the rally is the way to make them listen to us. if I misunderstood your comment, Tashi. Anyway, we all needed a little bit of a rallying cry, so thank you for that. We're also hearing that Vanessa from Connecticut Early Childhood Alliance, her birthday is June 4th, the last day of the legislative session. So let's all
Celebrate
the
Vanessa.
best birthday present ever for Vanessa. So, okay. I think that's it, everybody. We've got a big week. Try to go to a rally, try to do some online actions. There's a rally in Hartford. There, you know, that one's going to be an interesting one. The rallies in New Haven, Bridgeport, Waterbury. I mean, they are all over the state. So see what you can do. I know that it is tough to get out to these things, but even if you just go to uplift your own spirits, they are wonderful. And if you can't, it's okay. Go to lobby days, call your folks, and show up here next Monday. So,
yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Meryl, you have more?
Just the flyer, the petition we have, there is a downloadable PDF of a flyer you can post on the door, or have teachers talk to parents about when they pick up kids. Just there's a QR code, really easy to sign a petition. It's like the easiest thing that people can do to show support. Doesn't require writing a letter or anything. It's just a like quick and easy thing. Being able to go tell legislators, you know, we've got 100 people in your town who support this, helps as we are doing this.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Meryl. Everyone, the recording will be posted in the next 24 hours. If you hit subscribe on the Early Care Connection YouTube, you'll get notification when that is posted, so you don't have to keep checking back. The links to the presentations will be there. As a reminder, we do take the PowerPoints that the presenters send us, we convert them into Google Slides, and then convert them into translated into Spanish. And so sometimes the slides are imperfect. They might have a little bit of, you know, the sizing's not quite right, or you're not seeing something translated like you want it to be. But just know that this is the best we can do to get the information to the most people. And I hope that you all can be patient with some of those little problems. They're our efficiency method rather than our guests, not putting their presentations together right. So just as a reminder. Okay. Have a wonderful week, everyone. Enjoy the weather. See you next week.
See you.